The thing about traveling overseas and being what they call a passport bro is that you get accustomed to being surrounded by beautiful women. And that's all the time. They are all fit, they're all feminine, they're all beautiful, they're all cooperative, um, and they all do what you say. And that sounds very sexist to the American ear. The Western man has been taught that he's supposed to be a lot more egalitarian than the rest of the men of the world. But the truth is, when you get used to being a woman being uber cooperative with you, you don't get away from it. So when I say they do what you say, that's what happens. But the other thing is, you really don't care whether or not they love you or not. That's not as important as them being there. And more important, not only are they're there, and that's really all that matters, they leave when you want them to leave. Again, I know that sounds very sexist to the typical Westerner, but it doesn't matter. And most men will take offense to the fact that uh, I tell you it doesn't matter if they love you as long as they're there. Because, at the end of the day, love is something that young boys need. They need that motherly love. They need that motherly attention. Grown men understand that women love men conditionally. In other words, they love you um, conditioned on you being a utility, you being able to provide. And I know that sounds harsh, but I'm not that idealistic. I'm not looking for love. I'm not looking for that. Chris Rock said it best. He said that women and children and dogs are loved unconditionally. Men, there's conditions associated with it. Even your Bible teaches you that. The Bible teaches man that he is to love his wife, and in turn, she is to respect her husband. Does not require her to love her husband. So that tells you something. Women love their children, men love their wives, God loves us. So it flows downward, not upward. And so it's interesting that Shaquille O'Neal's ex-wife, Shawnee O'Neal, recently said that she never loved Shaquille O'Neal, yet she had 6 children by this man. And at the same time, this came out, this information came out, we see Shaquille O'Neal, who's 52 years old, on vacation with his 21-year-old girlfriend. And so that kind of puts things in perspective for you as to what is really important. And I don't think Shaquille O'Neal cares whether or not his ex-wife loved him at the time, as long as she helped him do what he needed to do, and that's bring forth his legacy. Now, this whole notion of romantic love is relatively new. It's a product of the Victorian era, which was between 1837 thereabouts in 1901, and that's when love, the idea of loving someone and being in love with them, became the primary requirement for marriage. Prior to that, people were married to fulfill practical needs. They were married for reproduction. They were married because of sex. They were married because of legacy. They were married because it was financially beneficial to them and their families. As far as love was way down at the bottom of the list. And we did that for thousands of years, and it worked well. So the question you have to ask yourself is, you know, what does that mean? Now, in the context of what I want to talk about today, I'm starting off with the effects of me being a passport bro, or me being a black man who's traveled overseas, a Western man, because there's a lot of white, Asian, Hispanic, men of all ethnicities who live in Western countries who will verify what I'm saying. The other thing it does, okay, being inundated and surrounded by women, you become accustomed to it, you become inoculated to it. It also raises your standards. See, being a passport bro and being surrounded by beautiful women, um, you know, and when I say beautiful, I'm talking about 8s and 9s. There was a time when I would have been satisfied being around a 5 or a 6, or even a 4 or 5, something right below average or average here in the United States. But now, you know, a woman has to at least be an 8, 9 or better for me to even consider whether or not she could even qualify, or even, how should I say, apply to qualify for my time, attention, and resources. And the reason being is because I've gotten used to it. Another side effect is that I have zero tolerance, a zero tolerance policy for women and their shenanigans. So along with raising my standards, this zero tolerance means that I don't tolerate the foolishness. It's too easy to replace a woman. And I say that from the perspective of someone who's lived in the Dominican Republic, who's lived in Colombia for the past 10 years or 14 years at this point. You got to understand that when I was, I guess while I was living in the Dominican Republic in my villa in Cabarete, I had a 21-year-old girlfriend and a 26-year-old girlfriend. They knew each other. They got along great. And they would come visit me in my villa. And mind you, this is at the time where I had to actually slow down a little bit. So instead of having 4 or 5 women in the pool every 2 or 3 days and jacuzzi parties every other day, I kind of slowed down, and I was hanging out with 2 individual, beautiful Dominican women, gorgeous. And, you know, they would come hang out with me in my villa for about 10 days. And when I decided I was ready to leave, I wouldn't head directly back to the United States. I would have my taxi driver bring me down to Santo Domingo, and then I would take a first-class flight on Avianca Airlines to Bogota, Colombia. And then I would go and stay in my apartment in Parque 93, which is an exclusive area in the capital city. And there I was surrounded by more beautiful women. And as you guys may know, I hope you know, Colombia is considered to have the most beautiful women in the world. So I go from the Dominican Republic to Colombia. And, you know, because I knew that there was ample opportunities to be with beautiful women, I had a zero tolerance policy. And what that does is it lets me pick and choose what I want. And that, in that mindset, woman does one thing wrong, I'm gone. And the reason I can do that is because I know that there are ample opportunities for me to date. Matter of fact, if I left a woman, if she picked an argument or she did something I didn't like or I found unacceptable, then that was simply an opportunity for me to upgrade, and there was no coming back, you see? Now the thing about it is, once you develop that attitude, you maintain it. So I say all that to say, we are in a situation now where the studies are saying that 45% of women in the United States are expected to be both childless and single by 2023. It's a very short time away. And this is a recent projection. That's 45% of women in America single and childless. Imagine that. Think about that. And these are going to be women between the ages of 25 and 44, single and childless. Wait till that rolls around. But I'm telling you, ladies who are listening to this broadcast, is if there are going to be that many women who are out there single and childless in those age ranges, you better hold on to your man. If you got a good man, you better hold on to him. If you have a halfway decent man, you better hold on to him. If you got any kind of man, and you even think he might be worth holding on to, you better hold on to him. Because between the passport bro movement and the soft guy era, drizzle, drizzle, between those two, you ladies are going to have to either pay a man to be with you, you're going to have to share a man, or you're going to do without. And that's how it's going to go. Numbers don't lie. Now, as far as the fellas, and you got to understand my perspective and why I think about this. You fellas, especially you younger men, it's going to be a lot of older women out there. There's going to be a lot of older women out there, so you need to be careful because these older women are predators. They will aggressively come at you. Nothing shy. They'll get you while you're working, okay? Especially if you're working in a secluded area like their homes, somewhere where they won't necessarily get in trouble, even at your jobs, regular jobs, public jobs. They want to be with you. They want to get what they need from you. You'll catch them looking. You'll listen to them in some of their inappropriate comments, some of their inappropriate questions, like, do you have kids, right? Or where's your woman at? You see? And my best bet for you fellas is you better look right past those women. And the reason you better look right past them because older women bring issues. Now, some of the most obvious issues are some of the health issues that older women bring. They have several medical conditions. I mean, there's a reason why nature compels men to be attracted to more fertile women, younger women. Because at a certain age, women begin to as they get older, they begin to have certain health issues. Between the ages of 30 and 40, they suffer from something called PCOS. That's an acronym for polycystic ovary syndrome. And what happens here is there's a hormonal disorder that it's very common amongst women who are in reproductive age. And if you look at an age group between 25 and 44, this is just where it starts. If they can have children, they may have hormonal issues. There's another one called endometriosis. And what happens here is that, as the lining of their uterus, should I say tissue, like the lining of their uterus begins to grow, and it outside the uterus, and it's very painful. It's very, very painful. And this is just between the ages of 30 and 40. You see? Also, you have to deal with something called fibroids. These are very painful. There are women in here who are dealing with this. These are non-cancerous growths, and they cause a lot of pain. They cause a lot of bleeding, and that's just between the ages of 30 and 40. And this is going to be a lot of them out here. See, in 7 years, 7 years, this Generation Z is going to be 33. You see? The oldest ones will be about 33. The youngest ones will still be young, but they're still, this is what you're dealing with. Now, that's the 30 to 40 age. Now, add on to that between the ages of 40 and 50. So now you got a hormonal woman who is experiencing pain, or more likely not will. And now you go from 40 to 50, you got women who are premenopausal. And basically what that means is their body is getting ready to shut down their biological ability to reproduce children. So what does this do? Well, they're gonna have irregular periods, menstrual cycles, they'll have more hormonal issues, and then so you add the stuff you had dealing with before in the 30s and 40s and now 40s and 50s, and by the time some women, they hit menopause early in those ages. And so they begin to experience things like hot flashes. Now, a hot flash You imagine you being with your woman and all of a sudden she's experiencing a hot flash. Her face gets hot, body gets hot. It can cause all sorts of mood swings. It causes vaginal dryness, all these different things you're dealing with for dating these older women. And this is why I'm telling you earlier, I started off with your standards being raised. Because any man with good sense is not going to want to deal with this. After they get 56 years old, you got menopause. Women have a higher rate of heart disease than even men. And it's in fact the leading cause of death amongst women, heart disease. Urinary incontinence, so that means they have issues down there. The fact is their childbirth years are over, so your body is having hormonal issues as a result of that. And so by the time they get 60 or 70, you're dealing with arthritis, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, which women are more likely to get than men. And so all these different issues. So when women are, and they're at a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease than even men. So this is what you're dealing with, fellas. These are the type of women that are going to be out here. And the thing you have to understand is they are going to be hunting for you. You see? And I don't want you to misunderstand. Men suffer from these issues also. It's not that women are the only ones that suffer from them, but at the end of the day, men die younger. So even if someone is burdened with dealing with an older man, because he's died, 68, 70 years old, most men are about done. And that coincides with about the end of their best reproductive utilitarian years. And so we are not a burden. I mean, nature works it out that way, that we don't become a burden on our family because we expire soon thereafter. But an older woman can live up to be 80 years old. So imagine this. I want you to listen to me, fellas, because these women, this is your reality. This is what's going to be out here in the next 7 years. Imagine you're 20 years old and you thought it was a good idea to go date an older woman, 35, 45 years old. And now she's 65 and you 40 years old, you 30 or 40 years old. She's dealing with menopause, Alzheimer's, she's hormonal, and she might have breast cancer. You're 40 years old at the prime of your earning potential, and I tell brothers and every man, tell men all the time, life doesn't even get good for men until they turn 40. And so now you're 40 years old, and all your friends are out there hanging out and banging 20-year-old women and traveling the world, and you're stuck with this post-menopausal elderly woman that you thought was the lick back in the day. You see? And I'm just here to tell you, it's not worth it. Fellas, older women carry a lot of baggage, and they demand a lot of privilege. In their mind, this is my time to groove, you see? It's your job to make them feel good. That's the mentality, and it's through the roof. On top of that, it can get to the point of annoying, especially when you consider they're going to want you to worship them for existing. You see? Their mentality is, hey, life is almost over, I'm going out with a bang, versus a man's mentality at the same age. Life has only just begun. It's just gotten good for me. Between the health problems and the pain that they have to deal with and the victim Olympics, oh my God. These are what you're going to have to deal with. These are the facts about dating older women. And any benefit that they bring is overrated. Like all women, some of them can be easier to deal with, but not always. Some of them play games, but, some of them don't. Okay? They can be cool at times, but some not. Just like an older man. A lot of them have those same issues, especially health issues. Can you imagine you laying up with your older woman and she's gassy with a bad attitude? Or on the flip side, instead of having a bad attitude, she's been humbled by life. Humbled because she's dealing with all these, she's been haunted about all these ghosts of Pookie's past. And so she's dealing with that. She has a lot of unresolved trauma, and that trauma can be both emotional and physical trauma that she's dealt with. You see? And so they treat you as a younger man like an emotional tampon, and she's, been broken down by life, and you're gonna need to heal this woman, and all these emotional wounds and extra problems. And on top of that, because of age, you might deal with alcoholism and substance abuse. And that's a big one amongst older women, a huge one. And they're always gonna compare you to their ex. No matter who the man is, you could be 20 years old, 30 years old, you could be 65, 70 years old. They're always gonna compare. And some of them can be clingy, they're less vibrant, less energetic, less enthusiasm about life. See, they've already been married. Some of them are gonna be widows. You see, they know how to manipulate men, that's another thing. And see, the delusional aspect that we have to understand is that many of these women, in their minds, they never aged. They're delusional in that they still think they have the same sexual marketplace value that they had 30 years ago, and it's just not there. They still think it's 1990 or whatever. You see? Now, they will splurge on you a little bit as a younger man. And the reason they do that is because you have a higher sexual marketplace value. You're younger, you see? But you got to understand something. They just want your sexual attention. At least at first, that's what they want. And, you more likely than not won't have to worry about paying 50-50 on a date. Instead, she'll front 100%. She knows how to fix a plate. By that time, most of them have learned how to cook. And they will usually, use you for sex if they can, but they will try to control you with food. See, they'll try to control you with sex. They'll try to control you with money. So all of those aspects that they may be able to perform well or better than a younger woman come as a double-edged sword. You see? Older women tend to be controlling. Okay, on top of being cantankerous, they're stuck in their ways. They want to tell you what to do. Now, the thing is, they can get you in the door because they're going to pretend like they're feminine. Or as they say, feigning feminine. In other words, they're going to be faking femininity. But then, after they get comfortable, like all women, they want to try to cash out, make it more permanent. Even these older women, they're going to try to get you to involve yourself more seriously in their lives with children or marriage. You see? Because they want that stability. A few months go by, you get to know her. Next thing you know, here you go. She's been trying to turn you out, been trying to blow your mind. And she's doing that in an attempt to turn you into her son husband, as Dr. Johnson says, Tia Son Johnson says. You see, they put themselves in that big mama mode, and they want to treat you like a child. And if you let them, right? If you let them do that, they will. Now, if you turn up the masculinity and push back and put them in their place, they will respect you. They may back down, or they may just move on to the next one. Either way, was it worth it? Now, a lot of people say, well, we just want to use older women for recreational use only. We want to use them for purposes of sex only. And some men say we just use them for sexual practice. That's what a young man should do. And I'm not really of that opinion. You see, the thing is, they are very easy to undress because they have lowered their standards for the most part. You don't have to date them. You don't have to take them out. You don't have to call them. You don't have to text them. You don't have to take them to dinners, no vacations, none of that. On top of that, there's no surprises. I can see why some men would want that. Okay? They're freaky frogs and nasty hogs in the bedroom, you see? They'll do their best to try to wear you out as a young buck. Because again, they've lowered their standards. You're a younger man, you have a higher sexual marketplace value, And you know, that's something they would value at that time. But the thing you got to understand is these same men who are telling you to use these women as sexual objects are not telling you everything that glitters is not gold. See, they're not telling you that cat is hanging out in the litter box too much. Okay, they're not going to tell you. They're not. They're not going to tell you that you can taste her with your eyes. Okay, they're not going to say that, and that your eyes burn from the smell. They're not going to say that. Okay, they're not going to talk about the likelihood that she'll have an STI just simply because she has so many miles on her. More importantly, you're more likely going to be dealing with a flat-backed woman because their knees hurt. And she got bad hips and she's pre-arthritic. Did you not hear what I said happens to women between 30 and 40, 40 and 50, 50 and 60, 60 and 70? And you young men want to do this to yourself? Just think about that. Don't lower your standards, fellas. Okay? All right? Don't lower your standards. The other thing is, you know, just the whole idea of dealing with an older woman. Oh my God, it's almost like, you know, she's the man in the relationship. She'll have you fixing her sandwich after sex, you know? So I suggest you guys just don't play with fire like that. Leave these older women alone. Because see, at the point where once they get their hooks in you, like any other woman, it's hard to escape. You get comfortable, you know, they feeding you, then you become conditioned to just deal with it. But at the end of the day, they have very little to offer and they take everything. And when I say everything, they take your time as a young man, which means they're taking your youth. Okay, that time you need to be building yourself up so that when you get to the age of in your late 30s and 40s, you can begin to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But if they take your time, you can't do that. You're distracted by this elderly woman. You are allowing this woman to use your youth. And heaven forbid she take your seed. And then here it's worse. What if she begins to become a drain on your resources? And the thing is, we expect that from women, but there's no longevity and there's no long-term benefit in a relationship with an elderly woman or an older woman as opposed to a young, vital woman. You see? These older women are stuck in their ways. You can barely tell them anything. No energy after 8 p.m. She's going to come with baggage, whether it be STIs, whether it be grown kids, ex-husband, baby's father. All these are issues. And as I said before, as far as reproduction and recreation, most of these older women are not going to be able to get pregnant. And if they are able to get pregnant, anything after the age of 39 is considered a high-risk pregnancy. And it's not really worth the risk. It's not worth the time. Again, as they say, the juice is not worth the squeeze. It's just a older woman who's going to have higher mileage and more headaches. You see, and the higher the mileage, the more expensive are their demands because it's still a woman. Now, for you men, you brave souls, you fellas who still want to endeavor in dating an older woman, I'm going to entertain you by saying, if you are going to do it, if you are one of these brave fellas that decide that dating an older woman is an option for you, well, you know, you need to make sure that it benefits you. You see? You need to make sure, I mean, if you're going to, look, well, let me say it like this. I only date women in their prime. I only date women between the ages of 20 and 29 or 20 and 28. That's it. That's it. Now, if I was with a woman prior to that, that would be different. But, you know, I'm not going to do it, you know. I'm not going to do it. You see? You have a short amount of time on this planet, and if you've worked and worked and worked and built yourself up that you can have options and you can exercise those options at will, it makes no sense for you to date down and lower your standards. For what? To date an older woman, don't even waste your time. Some of you say, well, I'm just doing this till I get myself on my feet. I'm doing this until I can do better at my business, have more money, have more options. It doesn't really work like that. You see? So again, I don't even talk to women that are my age. I never have. You know, I'm only dating women in their prime. And the thing is, older women, you know, settling for older women, that's kind of like, I guess that's like settling for eating another man's half-eaten sandwich. But the thing about it is, and as I said before, sometimes, you know, the sandwich looks a little tasty. You got some of these old girls around here that are looking cute, looking hot, and you want to take a few bites. And if you're going to do that, again, like I say, you need to make it worth your while. You need to make sure it benefits you. You need to, as they say, charge her. You understand? Drizzle, drizzle. You need to make them pay. Drizzle, drizzle. You need to make her pay your car note. Drizzle, drizzle. You need to make her pay for your college tuition. Drizzle, drizzle. If you're trying to get that GED, she needs to go ahead and pay for it. Drizzle, drizzle. She needs to pay for these cars. Make her use that alimony check that she siphoned off of her husband, her ex-husband, and make her spend it on you. That's how you recycle those dollars. But, you know, the thing I would suggest is, fellas, don't come cheap. If you're going to date one of these older women, if you're going to give up so much, i.e. your time and your youth, and you know there's no future in it for it, don't settle for a watch or a PS2 or some shoes. You need to get something that's of some sort of substance in exchange for the youth and the time that you spend with her. You know, don't come cheap. It's just not worth it. Now, the thing is, as I said earlier, I started off as a passport bro. Right after my first marriage ended, I started traveling overseas, and I began to see how frequently beautiful women occur outside of the United States. I'm talking slender women, under 140 pounds, beautiful hair, clear skin, good attitude, because as the competition is a lot stiffer overseas, women have to do more to compete. They have to be friendly. And the men in those countries treat the women like I do. You can be replaced. Oftentimes, many men in other third world countries, they have multiple families, even now. So what does that mean? That means that the women have to compete. And so the last thing you would want to do is settle down with an older woman just because they're in your proximity. More importantly, as these women are going to get a lot more aggressive, because as I said before, the studies show that by 2030, they're going to be 45% of women who are single and childless. They're going to be looking for men. You literally have to protect your teenage sons. I have two young men who are teenagers. And at some point, when they begin to date and get on the dating market, I'm going to have to warn them about women who are their mother's age, who would literally try to manipulate them so that they could then be impregnated by my young sons. This is the treachery of the modern woman. So be careful. So it's not just about fellas who are younger. We have to protect these young men. When you have desperate women out there who have never been held accountable for their deeds, you begin to see things like you see going on in these middle schools and high schools where these women are preying upon these young boys. Now imagine when that becomes a nationwide occurrence, just because you got so many women who are single and who have no children, and they're desperate now to have children. They're of the age, they're reaching their last days and times wherein they can have kids. They're willing to say and do anything just to get a man to spend some time with them and impregnate them, because whether they like it or not, there's only one place in which they can get pregnant, and that's through the will and the desire of a man who wants to do that for them. So that being the case, fellas, raise your standards, watch your back, be careful dating these old women. They come with too many health issues, too many attitude issues, too many proclivities, and it's just really not worth it. The world is yours. Go see what it has to offer. Don't settle for these older women. They had their chance, and if you do, if you do decide to, get you an old broad and you're willing to deal with the Bengay, the arthritis, and all the other ailments to go along with it, well, then make sure you make her pay for your time.